Welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha, a podcast shared by David Roylance. This podcast is dedicated to guiding you to completely eliminate the discontent mind and the suffering it causes by attaining enlightenment. Learn and practice the teachings of Gotama Buddha that will guide you to fully attain a peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy. To support this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha or visit buddhadailywisdom.com, where you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online learning resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Now, here's our teacher to share more.
Sawadee Kap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is our group learning program, and we're in the second part of a three-part series where I'm walking you through understanding the core central teaching of the Buddha, which is the Eightfold Path. Today we're going to be discussing the moral conduct section, which is right speech, right action, and right livelihood. What you're going to be learning is the natural law of Gotama, of cause and effect, or action and result. You're going to learn about the things that are wise, where you can practice in such a way where you're not causing harm in the world, so therefore harm isn't coming back to you. I'm going to be describing it using the words of the Buddha, and then using examples and walking you through and showing you how to learn, how to reflect on the teachings, and how to implement them through your practice so that you can experience more and more improved results in your life. Because as long as you lack wisdom of these teachings of right speech, right action, and right livelihood, even though you have the best intentions and maybe you feel like you're saying and speaking in such a great way, what you put out, you don't necessarily know that it's wise if you haven't studied the natural law of Gotama related to right speech, right action, and right livelihood. So I'm going to be diving into that in detail, walking you through piece by piece, allowing you to ask any and all questions that you like at each step. And this is part of the launch of our new iteration of the group learning program, where I'm walking you through, giving you an overview, but also going really deep into each section of this core central teaching of the Eightfold Path. So I'd like to welcome you, whether you're joining us for the first time or you've been joining us regularly. And at the same time, I'd like to invite you for meditation, that I start each one of our classes with a meditation. We're going to do breathing mindfulness meditation. I'll be starting off with a chant to kind of ease us into meditation, which I'll be teaching you later in this program. But if you would like to start looking at these, they're in Volume 1, Chapter 11. They're even on our website under buddhadailywisdom.com, free books. If you go there, you'll actually see the chanting sheet where I'm actually chanting the Pali words. You'll see the English translations as well. Remember, these aren't any rites or rituals or ceremonies or worship. It's not prayer or anything like that. It just helps to ease the mind into meditation. And then there's going to be a period of time where I'll be guiding you and helping you to understand how to meditate so that you can build up your meditation practice, both in class but outside of class as well. And then there'll be a period of time where it's just quiet. Maybe 10, 12, 15 minutes will just be quiet. I'm sure you'll hear the occasional sound in your environment, but remember, those sounds are not permanent. They are impermanent. So just keep your mind focused on the breath, and where you notice the mind moves off the breath, just cut that off and bring the mind back to the breath. Remembering that the goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts. The goal is to notice them sooner and sooner, and then to be able to more and more easily bring the mind back to the breath. So if you needed to let go 20, 30, 50 times during your meditation, this is very helpful for you. So if you're having random thoughts, that's completely normal. Or if you indulge in a thought for a period of time, that's completely normal. But just get better and better at noticing that there is a thought and letting it go sooner and sooner. And then after we do that period of time where it's quiet and we're meditating, then I'm going to come out of the meditation with some chanting, and then we'll move into our class where I'll share with you the moral conduct section of the Eightfold Path. So if you'd like to take a position, either seated, lying, or standing, these are really helpful for online learning. There is a walking position that you can learn as well. Most people are learning in the seated position, and that's kind of like the primary go-to position for meditation. So make yourself comfortable either on the floor or in a chair. I'll just ease us into meditation with some chanting, and then I'll be back with some guidance. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Bhutang Mahakewanhang Apivati มิ สวากขาโตมหาเกวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิ สุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามิ นับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโพโตภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, establishing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. วันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมาเควตาธัมโมดามังนามาสามิสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสคาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโพโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly ease your way out of meditation. So this is the breathing mindfulness meditation that we are doing before each class, and this is something that you can build up your practice in your daily life to 2 or 3 sessions for 30 minutes or more, realizing that it's going to take you a good maybe 6 months, a year, even 2 years to do that, but just gradually expand it little by little. We're doing that in classes. We're gradually expanding this to get you comfortable with meditating for longer and longer periods. So when you get to 2 or 3 sessions, that's where you really notice a big difference. If you start with 1 session for 5 minutes, then so be it. But once you get to those 2 sessions, even if they're 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you're really going to notice some big difference. So this is something that you'll be able to do here in classes, and then you'll be able to do this outside of class and build up your practice and really start experiencing more and more progress in your practice. So today we're going to be talking about the Eightfold Path, the moral conduct section, right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Where we left off last week was where we talked about right view and right intention, and you learned the 4 noble truths, helping you to understand what's causing your discontent feelings. All the anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, the loneliness, the boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, any kind of displeasure in the mind, even resentment and hostility. It's all being caused by craving, desire, attachment, the mind longing, yearning. It's not external things. It's inside the mind which is causing these. And you can actually independently verify this and see the truth for yourself. And I walked you through how to do that. And we talked about the way to eliminate the discontent feelings, getting to this peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy that is enlightenment, is to eliminate the cause that's causing it. The cause is craving, desire, attachment. That's what's causing the discontentedness. The discontentedness is the problem. The cause of that problem is the craving, desire, attachment. So to eliminate the problem, you need to eliminate the cause, which is the craving, desire, attachment. And then the Buddha shared in the 4th Noble Truth that it's the Eightfold Path that is the way to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. So each one of these factors, including the moral conduct, you're going to see how it works to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. Then we talked about right intention, where you're working on developing the intention of renunciation, which is to let go and give up unwholesomeness, give up false beliefs, false opinions. But you're not doing that by bringing in new beliefs. Remember, everything in the teachings of the Buddha is not about believe, and hope something good happens when you die. You're learning, you're reflecting to independently verify, and you're practicing in order to get to wisdom. And now when you bring this wisdom in, that helps you to let go of your misperceptions, your misunderstandings. And one of the first misperceptions and misunderstandings that the mind needs to let go of is the belief that other people are causing you to be angry, that it's something external. And if you've reflected on this over the last week, you're seeing more and more and more how whenever your mind's annoyed or frustrated or agitated, the mind is causing it itself. And it's going to be gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress, which diminishes that over time. So one of the aspects of right intention is the intention of renunciation. And then there's the intention of non-ill will, which is a double negative. So this is the intention of goodwill, or the intention of loving kindness, having that genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill. And then the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. And that's an intention or a thinking or a thought that you would like to now build upon as you move into the moral conduct section. Because now in the moral conduct section, the Buddha is going to teach you how to not cause harm to others through your speech or actions in your livelihood. And then next week, we'll talk about the mental discipline, which is going to help you to propel you and bring all of these teachings into practice. Without all aspects of the Eightfold Path, you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment. So these three factors that we're going to be talking about today, right speech, right action, and right livelihood, it's all based around the natural law of Gotama. You might have heard this word karma before. The word karma is from the Sanskrit language. It's the same word, it's just a different language, whether it's Sanskrit versus Pali. The original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language. So people who usually study the original teachings of the Buddha will tend to use the word Gama, where most of the world's familiar with the word karma. It's referring to the same thing, just a different language. This natural law of Gama, if it translated to just one English word, that I would use that word. But this word Gama doesn't translate to just one English word, so I still need to use this word Gama. By and large, everything that I teach is all in English. There's only two words that I still need to use that are in the Pali language, and this is one of them, the word Gama. What Gama is, or the natural law of Gama, it's cause and effect, or action and results. It's the results of your decisions. It's not mystical or magical. It's not punishments and rewards. There's no being who's overseeing this natural law and determining who to punish and who to reward. It's not even about who's to blame or who's at fault. It's about there's a certain cause or a certain decision that you make, and then there's going to be a certain effect, either wholesome or unwholesome. Based on whether you make a wise decision, you'll experience a wholesome result. And if you make an unwise decision, you're going to experience an unwholesome result. And there's this certain action, which again is a decision that you make. You're going to be making, and you have been making, countless decisions in your life. And it's going to produce either wholesome results or unwholesome results. And when you lack wisdom of this natural law, you're going to naturally make unwise decisions because you just don't understand what you don't understand. So the mind's going to make unwise decisions, and it's going to produce unwholesome results. And typically when this is occurring in the unenlightened mind, when somebody's off the path to enlightenment, we will typically blame other people. Whenever anything's going on in our life that we think is unwholesome, we will start blaming other people typically. Or we might say it's good luck or bad luck. Or we might say it's destiny or our fate. This isn't actually true, right? Some people might think that God is punishing them. This isn't actually true. What it is it's our own decisions. That when we base our decisions in what's called the three poisons, or the three unwholesome roots, or the three fires, which you're going to learn about in chapter 8, mainly craving, anger, and ignorance, whenever we're making decisions through this unknowing of true reality, where we don't have the wisdom of the natural law of Gama, we're going to make unwise decisions that produce unwholesome results. But when we have wisdom and we understand this natural law, now that really empowers us to make wiser and wiser and wiser decisions and experience more and more wholesome results in your life. And you can get to the point where you're only experiencing wholesome results because you have wisdom of this natural law and you're making decisions based in this natural law. So the natural law of Gama is cause and effect, or action and results. It's the results of your decisions. And everything you experience is a result of decisions that you've made. There's your life, your decisions, and it's your results. And now through right speech, right action, and right livelihood, the Buddha is going to share with you certain wise and unwise decisions. You should never think about moral conduct when the Buddha is teaching it as rules or commandments. You'll never see the Buddha using guilt, shame, or fear to teach you things like moral conduct. He also doesn't dangle a carrot and try to get you to do any one particular thing, because remember, his mind's already peaceful. He's already joyful. He doesn't want anything from you. He doesn't expect anything from you. He's not longing, yearning, and craving. He's just sharing with you what it took for him to be able to get to that enlightened mental state. And you're going to need to know this natural law of karma, because as long as you're putting harm out through your speech or actions and livelihood, this harm is coming back to you. This is the natural law of karma. It's cause and effect, or action and result. It's essentially a sequence of decisions. So now I'm going to share with you right speech to be able to help you to understand how to speak in a way that would be wise. And remember, your personality, your character, that's for you. But now when you see this natural law and how the Buddha teaches it to you, you can now learn it, you can reflect on it to independently verify it, and you can practice it. And then you can decide for yourself how you would like to practice, right? So here, the words of the Buddha, he says, "In what, monks, is right speech? Refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from frivolous speech. This is called right speech." So each one of these is based in craving, desire, attachment. And remember, he says the way to eliminate craving, desire, attachment is to practice the Eightfold Path. So by practicing right speech, in understanding these four aspects of right speech, you're reducing and eliminating your craving, desire, attachment, and you're causing less and less harm in the world, so less and less harm is coming back to you. So refraining from lying is telling a deliberate lie or a false truth, speaking a falsehood. And you can learn this, that it's wise, this is what the Buddha is saying, but you can reflect on this and you can see in situations where you've lied, because we've all lied as we were growing up as children. We lied, and you can see, did it produce wholesome results or did it produce unwholesome results? At the very least, if you're doing a lot of lying, your mind was obsessively trying to figure out, what did you say to one person versus what did you say to another person, and what did you say to this person over here? And you're having to obsessively sort that all out. Your mind can't be peaceful and joyful if you're having to sort out all of that obsessively in the mind. And then if you've been lying and people are discovering those lies, they're going to start to look at you as being undependable and untrustworthy. And it's going to damage your personal and professional relationships. So by not lying, your mind can be at ease. You can just speak the truth about whatever you know. And if you don't know something, you just say, I don't know, right? But if there's ego in there, you're not going to want to say, I don't know, right? So you're going to need to make sure that you're speaking the truth. And now you can be a truth speaker, one to be relied on, not a deceiver of the world. You can be trustworthy and dependable. Then if you look at slander, what slander is like gossip or damaging somebody's reputation, right? Either a person, an organization, a country, company, a business, something like this. If you're slandering people, this is putting out harmful speech, that then this is going to come back to you. At the very least, the people that you're talking to, where you are slandering others or gossiping about others, at the very least, when you turn your back, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you, because they got so used to listening to gossip and slander. Now, when your back is turned, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you. So you probably don't like that. So if you put that out, that's what's going to come back to you. But at the extreme level of slander and gossip, this is where you see like people that are investigative journalists who go out into the world and then they write stories about people and uncovering certain things. I'm not saying whether those people should or shouldn't do that, but you can see the natural law of karma for yourself, that oftentimes these people end up injured or even murdered, right? Remember, the Buddha isn't teaching you the way the world should be. He's teaching you the way the world is. And if you go out into the world and you slander and you gossip people, this is all going to come back to you in your life. Then there's refraining from harsh speech. This is your tone, your tempo, and your word choice, how you choose to speak with others. If you're speaking harshly and aggressive and hostile and bitter, you can see that in those situations, when you've done that, it's led to broken relationships at the very least, right? Like people experience that hostility and bitterness from you, and it ended the relationship. At the extreme, again, you can get in fights, you can get injured, you can get murdered, right? If you're being aggressive, harsh, and hostile with people. And then there's refraining from frivolous speech. What this is what we also refer to idle chatter, where somebody is just yada 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 yada. It's like it's not even a conversation anymore. It's just a broadcast, right? You might have done this in the past, or other people might have done this with you, and you were probably like, oh my goodness, when is this person going to stop talking, right? It's just constant broadcast to you, right? As you do this, people are going to be less influenced by what it is that you have to say. You would like to be influential in your community and at your work and in your business and personal life. If you're just yada 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 broadcasting to people, you're not going to experience this interaction where it's an actual conversation, where you leave space in your conversation for other people to talk. And when you do that, then people will look at you in a more favorable way. But when you're speaking with frivolous speech or idle chatter, you're going to notice that people aren't going to be very interested in speaking with you. Where all four of these things are coming from is craving, desire, attachment, longing, yearning, those selfish desires. Typically when somebody is lying, or whenever you've lied, it's because you want something. And if you tell the truth, you're not going to get what you want. When you're slandering or gossiping, you might be trying to diminish other people because you're craving to look good yourself, right? Or you're craving some other thing, something bad to happen to that person, perhaps. If you're speaking harsh and aggressive, this is because your anger has arisen. You're angry, you're frustrated, you're harsh, you want something, you're having craving, desire, attachment. And then the same thing with frivolous speech. If the mind's just yada, 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 there's just a craving in there to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. So by you scaling this back and getting to the point where you're speaking the truth, where you're speaking beneficially and you're speaking in a way that is a conversation and nice and gentle, this is going to help you to be able to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. But you're going to need to gradually dial this in and bring your practice up to this, because your mind's not going to naturally be able to just learn this and snap your fingers and walk out and go do it. It's not possible, particularly in relationships where you have craving, desire, attachment. You'll find it very challenging to speak in this way. So this is the level of teachings on right speech that the Buddha shares in the Eightfold Path. But remember, the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching where all the other teachings plug into it. So there's other teachings that are deeper than these four aspects of right speech that helps you to penetrate deeper into speech in the best way for you to talk in wise ways that is going to produce wholesome results in your life. So underneath of this, I have the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, where now you can see a deeper teaching that you'd ultimately like to dial in closer and closer. If you're still lying or having slander or harsh speech or frivolous speech, you need to work on that. But then you'll need to go deeper where you're practicing the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. The first one is speaking at the proper time. This has 3 aspects to it. Speaking at the proper time is making sure that you're not interrupting people, because you know when people interrupt you, you don't like that. It doesn't feel good. You don't enjoy talking to this person because you can't even get your thought out and they're already interrupting you. So if you interrupt other people, this is going to damage your relationships. And then another aspect of proper speech is making sure that your mind is prepared to talk. If you're angry, if you're upset, if you're sad, if you're frustrated, all of those kinds of things, the only thing that's going to come out is your anger, your hatred, your ill will. And now you're damaging your relationships through your speech. So you need to make sure it's the proper time for your mind, that your mind's calm. And if it's not, you need to walk away until your mind calms down, so that then when you come back to the conversation a few hours later, a few days later, that you can actually have a nice conversation because it's the proper time. And you can have a better conversation where you're not venting your anger. And then the third aspect of speaking at the proper time is making sure that the other person's mind, that it's the right time for them. So say, for example, that you got a notice in the mail that you forgot to pay your rent, and you've got 3 days to pay or you're going to be evicted and kicked out. And say your life partner or your roommate is coming home from work, and right away you jump on them and start talking to them. This is not the proper time to talk, right? Their mind hasn't even acclimated to being at home yet. So you'd like them to come in, put their bags down, take off their shoes, maybe get some water, get some food, rest for a little while, maybe 20, 30 minutes, an hour. And then you say, hey, is this a good time to talk? I have something important that we need to discuss. And they might say, yeah, sure. What do you got? Right? And then you can talk about it. But if they say, no, it's not the right time. Today was a very hectic day. Maybe we talk another time tomorrow. Well, if you don't have craving, desire, attachment, you should be able to postpone that until tomorrow, because you'll still have 2 days or 3 days to sort this out. But if you have craving, if you have desire, you're going to want to talk right away. Same thing with interrupting. Same thing if your mind is angry and hostile, or same thing if their mind is not prepared to talk. If they're angry, if they're frustrated, it's not the proper time for them to be speaking either. But they might not know that because they're not studying these teachings. But if you know that and you don't have craving, then you can restrain the mind and you can choose a proper time to speak about any particular topic that it is that you need to discuss with anybody. Then the second aspect is speaking what is true. And that's covered in the top part of the Eightfold Path, where the Buddha talks about refraining from lying, because you're interested in being dependable and reliable. You would like people to see you as being trustworthy so that your personal and professional relationships can really blossom. And if you're lying, that's not going to happen for you. Then the third aspect of the 5 factors of well-spoken speech is speaking gently. This is your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. You'd like to pay a lot of attention to that. Your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. Here in Thailand, they speak very gentle. And in their language, they actually have certain words that you use pretty much in every single sentence in order to make sure that the people that you're talking to know that you're speaking politely and kindly. So like that's when I say sawadee kap. Sawadee means hello and welcome, and it also means goodbye as well. But the last word that I use at the end, the kap, that kap is to have politeness and respect for the person that you're talking to. So we say sawadee kap. Or if we're saying another sentence, it might be bada 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 kap, bada 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 kap, bada 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 kap, bada 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 kap, and that's showing that you're putting that extra effort to put that last phrase in there, that last word, in order for the person that you're talking to know that it's very polite. And as a male, you speak with the word kap. And as a female, you speak with the word ka. So females will say sawadee ka or kap kun ka, right? And this is a way that we can know that you're being polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. Well, certain languages don't necessarily have that. In English or Chinese or Spanish, there's other ways that we can ensure that the people that we're talking to know that we're being polite. And maybe you don't normally talk like this right now, and you're going to need to bring your practice up to this, right? You might say yes, sir, or no, ma'am, or yes, ma'am, right? You might use that occasionally. You might be saying please or thank you, right? These are words that you can be using and watching your tone, your tempo, and your word choice to ensure that people know that you're being gentle and polite and friendly and kind and respectful when you're actually talking. Then you would like to speak beneficially. This is purposeful speech. This is the opposite of frivolous speech. Frivolous speech would be unpurposeful, unbeneficial speech, where you're just speaking yada, 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 yada. Well, beneficial speech is making sure that when you're speaking, it's purposeful and it's beneficial, that you have a certain purpose behind your speech. And your purpose could be just to get to know this person, right? It might be a brand new relationship. It's like, hi, how are you? What's your name? Where are you from? How old are you? How did you get here? Or whatever it is, where are you from? These kinds of things. This is very purposeful. This is very beneficial. So it's not necessarily about the topic. It's not like there's a list of approved topics that these are beneficial. It's about ensuring that you're purposeful in your speech and that you have a real purpose behind your speech, that you're not just kind of vague and kind of muddled in your speech, that you're very purposeful, clear, concise, and precise in the way that you speak. That's what it means to speak beneficially. And then the fifth one is speaking with a mind of loving kindness. Loving kindness is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill. This is the opposite of hate or anger. And I'm going to be teaching you in a couple of weeks a meditation that's going to help you to cultivate loving kindness in the mind so you can actually use it in your speech. It's kind of like filling up your gas tank and then going out into the world and using this loving kindness in things like your speech. So the opposite of anger, hatred, harshness, and bitterness would be speaking with a mind of loving kindness, where you have active goodwill towards all beings, a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. So when you're speaking at the right time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, with a mind of loving kindness, you're going to see that it produces wholesome results in your life. And when you speak in the opposite way, even if you miss just one of these factors, you're going to see that there's going to be unwholesome results. So this is a little bit of the learning on the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And if you look in the book, Volume 1, Chapter 5, you're going to see the details of where I explain this in detail in written form. Now, when you understand it intellectually, you start to understand the very next thing you need to do is reflect on this. You need to verify whether this is true or false, because you're not interested in believing me. You're not interested in believing the Buddha. You're not interested in believing anything. You need to start reflecting and seeing is this true or not. So what you do is you take a conversation that you've recently had, or maybe it was in the past, maybe it was this morning, maybe it was yesterday, maybe it was last week, and it didn't go well. The conversation didn't go well. There were some unwholesome results as part of this conversation. You can look at that conversation now, and you and or the other person was missing one or more of these 5 factors of well-spoken speech. You can look at that conversation and walk through it. Were you speaking at the right time? Is what you said true? Was it gentle? Was it beneficial? Was it with a mind of loving kindness? If you missed even one of these factors, the conversation would have resulted in unwholesome results. But then you can also take the reverse in order to be sure you doubly reflect on this to independently verify it. Take a conversation that has went well for you, a wholesome conversation that produced wholesome results in your life. And even though you didn't know these 5 factors at that time, you and the other person were practicing them. You were speaking at the right time. What you said was true. It was gentle, beneficial, with a mind of loving kindness. And the same thing with the other person. And you weren't even aware of these 5 factors, but it produced this wholesome result for you. But now what you do is you learn these 5 factors in detail, and now you consciously start practicing them. Because before, when you weren't aware of them and you happened to be practicing them, you can see that it produced wholesome results for you. But now you consciously start dialing this in closer and closer. In relationships where you have craving, desire, attachment, it'll be hardest for you to practice these 5 factors. So with life partners, with your parents, with your siblings, with your children, maybe if you have attachment to your boss or coworkers or friends or other family members, you'll find it really challenging because you're so attached and you're wanting them to do something, and it's going to be really hard for you. And that's where the practice comes in. And that's where you can't snap your fingers and instantly practice these overnight. You need to gradually build your practice up. One of the things that I used to do is I used to store these on my mobile phone. Like right now, you could take a picture of the screen and store this on your mobile phone. And then each morning, what I would do is I would look at the 5 factors of well-spoken speech after my meditation. I would look at the 5 factors and kind of ingrain them in my mind, soak them into my mind. And then I would go out into the world and start working on practicing right speech in all my conversations. And then at lunchtime, when I was done with my lunch and I had finished my meditation, I would look at the 5 factors again and I would start reflecting on the conversations I had in the morning. Did I speak with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech? Oh yeah, that conversation went really well. Look at that. That's because I practiced the 5 factors. Oh, look at this one over here. It could have been better because I missed this factor and I missed that factor. So let me dial that in more closely in my next conversation. No reason to beat yourself up. No reason to feel guilty or shameful or fearful. Like I mentioned, the Buddha doesn't use guilt, shame, and fear in order to help you eliminate guilt, shame, and fear. This would be silly, right? It wouldn't actually work. So what you do is you look at it and you aim to do better. You work at it, slowly but surely dialing this in. Essentially what you're doing when you're building right speech in your life, in your practice, is you're developing right communication, right? The Buddha calls this right speech, but that's because there was only speech going on during his lifetime. Nowadays, we have spoken words, which is verbal communication, but we have emails, we have text messages, we have chat, we have social media, we have all different kinds of ways of communicating. So you might think about this as right communication. You would like all your communication to be using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. Have you ever sat down at a computer and pounded out an email and then sent it and some unwholesome result came back to you? That's because it wasn't the right time for you to be communicating. So you should think about this as right communication. So if you're going to, say, like a job interview, you could go to a job interview and use right speech all day long, and wow, they're really impressed with you. But if they look at your social media and they see a lot of harshness and bitterness and hostility, you probably aren't going to get the job. So you would like all your communication, no matter what you're doing, whether it's email, text, social media, phone calls, in-person conversations, gradually, slowly but surely building up to right speech where you're using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And as you do that, you're developing what we refer to here in Thailand as barami. This is a Thai word, barami. What Barami is, this is where we refer to this as the one who people listen to. In each village here in Thailand, there's either a person or a couple or something like this that is considered to be very successful in the village and in the community. And the other villagers know that they can go talk to these villagers and get help in order to ask them certain questions and gain wisdom about their life. And when I say that they're very successful in life, I don't mean financially successful. What I mean is they have harmonious relationships. That's how you determine whether somebody's truly successful in life or not. It's not about money, right? Anybody can go out and make a bunch of money. But if you're successful in life, that means you have lots of harmonious relationships. And there's certain people here in Thailand that are well known in the village for having very harmonious relationships. And the other villagers will go to that person or that couple and seek guidance and ask questions because they're very influential in the community. So if you're interested in being influential in your family or in your work environment or in your social community, and you're interested in helping other people, you need to first practice and show that you have wisdom through the way that you speak and the way that you interact with each other and other people and build harmonious relationships. And one of the ways that you do that is through practicing right speech, where you can develop barami. This means the one who people listen to. That's what barami means. The one who people listen to. So you can gradually build this up. It's not going to be 1 week or 1 month that you build your practice up. And it's not going to be 1 week or 1 month that people consider you to be the one who people listen to, right? But when you're practicing this for 6 months and a year and more in all your relationships, you're practicing more and you're cleaning up your mind, you're eliminating these cravings, and it becomes easier and easier for you in each one of your relationships to practice the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. More and more people start looking at you and thinking of you as a very wise person who, wow, this person never harms anybody through their speech. And you're going to find that more and more people are interested in spending time with you. Because when you're speaking in ways that are unwise, you're causing harm to others. And now they're kind of afraid to spend time around you because it's only a matter of time before you say something that they kind of shudder and they get injured in terms of their mind, right? They kind of feel a certain way. But when you speak this way, you can ensure that you're speaking in ways that is harmless, that you're not causing harm through any kind of bitterness or hostility or your own cravings, desires, attachments. And when you're developing this, as I mentioned, you're going to need to review this. And if you have it on your phone, that's wonderful. Or if some people make a poster and they put it in their kitchen for their children, and they're not as rules, right? It's just as guidance to be able to help you, right? Maybe it's a great crafts project for children to do. Make a little poster about the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. Or maybe you hang this up in your bathroom and on your mirror so that while you're brushing your teeth, you remember this on your way to work, right? Or maybe it's in your cubicle at work, at your desk or something like that. You have this there to remind you of that, right? And as you're learning this and you're trying to build your practice up more and more, there'll be certain times where your mind will just blank and you'll just forget what the 5 factors of well-spoken speech are because you haven't deeply soaked them into the mind yet. And as you're doing that, what I encourage you to do is think about speech that is polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. If you can speak in polite, kind, friendly, and respectful ways, this will help you to produce wholesome results. Of course, the words of the Buddha around the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, that's communicating the natural law of Gotama, of cause and effect, or action and result. That's wise speech that is going to produce wholesome results. But if everything blanks on you, if you can remember a polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, this can really guide you. And then more and more dial in those 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And what I encourage you to do is to read in Volume 1, Chapter 5 of Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. In this book, you're going to see all those individual factors of the Eightfold Path, where it talks about lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. I explain what each one of those are. And then the same thing with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. I explain what each one of those are too. And remember, you can get this book for free by downloading it from our website. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here at the temple in Thailand, or you can order them on Amazon. So you're going to need to gradually build up your speech to the point where you can speak effortlessly with right speech. This isn't going to come natural to you because your mind wants to stay in the darkness. The mind is holding on. It's not willing to do this work necessarily. It might not be willing to do this effort and this diligence and dedication to go forward. Oftentimes the mind is complacent. So you're going to need to arise this effort and energy and dedication and enthusiasm to walk towards the light and get out of this darkness. So you can study right speech, and you can ask me any and all questions that you like. I'll even pause here right now before I go into right action to give you guys a chance to ask any and all questions that you like around right speech. So you can put those into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or in Zoom you can raise your hand electronically and ask any questions that you like. Let me know what questions you guys have, if any at all. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So I'm going to move on to right action. Right action is the fourth step of the Eightfold Path, or the fourth factor, right? You're practicing all these factors at the same time. You're kind of dialing them in. It's not one needs to be perfected before you move on to the other. You're dialing all these in at the same time. Here, the words of the Buddha are, in what, monks, is right action? Refraining from taking life, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. This is called right action. What he's sharing here with you is 3 impactful decisions that you could make with the body. Of course, the decision is being made in the mind, but the body is following along and doing what the mind wants in order to kill, in order to steal, in order to have sexual misconduct. And this is grave harm that you're causing, and this is where harm can come back to you. And again, you can learn this, you can reflect on it, and you can practice. Because if you were out there murdering and taking the life of beings, you know that that's going to produce unwholesome results, and unwholesome results are going to come back to you. People are going to want to injure you and murder you and put you in jail. If you're stealing from somebody, you're causing harm. Like if I stole somebody's car, now they can't go to work and make money. They can't take their kids to school if they have children. They can't go to the grocery store and go to different venues in order to acquire the basic necessities that they need to live life. So I've harmed this person by stealing their car, and now harm's going to come to me because of that, right? I can get in all kinds of difficulties. And then there's sexual misconduct that the Buddha talks about here. At least he references it. When we study chapter 7, which is the 5 precepts, this is where the Buddha explains the sexual misconduct in detail. And I like to give students a heads up because it's going to be about another 2 months before we get to that portion of the group learning program where we're in chapter 7. When he talks about sexual misconduct, he goes into detail about it. He talks about sexual conduct like having sex with minors. He talks about having sex outside of existing relationships that you currently have, or having sex with somebody else who's in an existing relationship. He talks about having sex without consent, people like raping or forcibly having sex with somebody. And all of this produces unwholesome results. It causes harm, and this harm comes back to you. But it's very notable that he doesn't talk about same-gender relationships. And the reason why is because 2 individuals, no matter what gender they are, if they're having a loyal, loving, consenting relationship, they're not causing harm to anybody. Right? If there's a male and a female that's choosing to have sex together, they're not causing harm to anybody. They're a loyal, loving, consenting relationship. And then the same thing is true about a man and a woman and a woman, right? That these are individuals that are having a loyal, loving, consenting sexual activity together. They're not causing harm to anyone. And the Buddha was well aware of same-gender relationships during his lifetime because he talks about it, right? Same-gender relationships aren't new. This has been happening all throughout time. And you know this is true if you learned the universal truth of impermanence last week. Last week, when I taught you the universal truth of impermanence, I talked about how there's nothing around you that is permanent. There's not this fixed state. So if every single male was interested in having sex with a female, and every single female was interested in having sex with a male, this would be permanence, right? And that doesn't exist. So we understand the universal truth of impermanence, meaning some men are going to be interested in having sex with women, but some men are going to be interested in having sex with men. And the same thing is true about a woman. There's going to be some women who are interested in having sex with a man and some who are interested in having sex with a woman. This is completely normal if you understand the universal truth of impermanence. Ever since the beginning of human history, there's been same-gender relationships. And the reason why the Buddha didn't teach it as sexual misconduct is because it's not causing harm to anybody. They're 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults. So the Buddha was well aware of this over 2,500 years ago. This is how wise he was. Even today, there's countless people who don't understand what it is that I just shared with you. But 2,500 years ago, the Buddha already understood this because his mind was fully, perfectly enlightened. He had wisdom about this natural law of karma, and he could see that this doesn't cause any harm by having a loyal, loving, consenting relationship. So we're going to talk more about each of these three and others when we get to the 5 precepts. The Buddha gives you much more illuminating language that is going to explain all of this to you. Because here he's just pointing to the 5 precepts. The Eightfold Path is that core central teaching that integrates all the other teachings. And the 5 precepts are going to expand upon this and give you more illuminating language. But let's go deeper into right action so that you fully understand it, because it's not just these 3 things. The Buddha is giving you these 3 things because they're 3 very impactful decisions around bodily actions. But he's not giving you an exhaustive list of every single bodily action that would cause harm. Notice he doesn't say, don't walk up to somebody, punch them in the face. Right? He's not going to say that, because if you understand right action and you understand these 3 aspects of right action, then you can learn and you can understand moving to this higher consciousness and making wise decisions, that it would be very unwise for you to walk up to somebody and punch them in the face, because at the very least, they're probably going to punch you back, or maybe their friends or family are going to attack you. They might have a gun or a knife or something like this. It would be very unwise to do that, right? He also doesn't say, don't walk down the aisle of an airplane dragging a suitcase and running over people's feet and bumping into their knees, right? He doesn't say that either, because there were no airplanes during the lifetime of the Buddha. But if you understand right action and that you're not interested in causing bodily harm through your body, then you would understand not to walk down the aisle of an airplane dragging your suitcase and running over people's feet and bumping into their knees. If you've ever seen someone do that, then you've seen the unwholesome results. And that's because they're not practicing right action. They're causing harm through their bodily actions. So the Buddha does teach other bodily actions that do cause harm. And you'll see this, the more you peer into and penetrate into the teachings of the Buddha, you'll see the various things. But he never gives you an exhaustive list, because you're moving to this higher consciousness where you need to be able to cultivate wisdom of this natural law of karma and see the truth for yourself. Like even taking oil and dumping it in your backyard. Like if you change the oil in your car and you dumped it in your backyard, that's a bodily action that's causing harm. So you're going to need to be able to see those kinds of things and then make the wise decision of, how do I not cause harm through these bodily actions? But you'll see the Buddha talk about taking substances that cause heedlessness. Heedlessness is unattentiveness, unalertness, because you're looking to develop mindfulness or awareness of mind. And if you're putting substances into the body that's promoting unalertness and unmindfulness, unawareness, this is going to be very challenging for you to train your mind and purify your mind, because you're not going to be able to observe the quality of your mind, because your mind is heedless or it's unattentive or unalert based on the substance that you're putting into the body. So this isn't a rule or a commandment. It's, how do I get to this purified mental state where my mind can be peaceful and joyful permanently for the rest of this life? If you're putting substances into the body that's promoting this heedlessness, that's going to hinder you from being able to see the purity of the mind and be able to see the unwholesome things in the mind too, so that you can purify and eliminate those. And then the same thing with gambling. Gambling is something that is based in craving. Whereas if you're gambling, you're going to have a lot of craving for money and money and money and money, and you can get addicted to that. And then if you spend a lot of money, you're not going to be able to afford to pay for your basic necessities like food, water, clothing, shelter, and medical care. These are the 5 things that you need in order to sustain your life. You need food, water, clothing, shelter, and medical care. If you have those 5 things, you can then sustain your life. But if you're gambling and you're spending money and you're putting your money out into the street with gambling because of that craving, because the mind wants more and more and more and more and more, you'll actually go down and down and down in like a downward spiral where you're not able to afford some of the basic necessities that you need for your life. So the Buddha here under right action isn't giving you an exhaustive list. You'll never see that, but he does at different times in his teachings kind of point out some of the less obvious ones that you might not be aware of. And then he gives you language and teachings to be able to help you understand that. But then you're going to need to use your discernment, your wise decision making to determine, is this bodily action that I'm about to do, is it going to cause harm to anybody, or is it going to cause harm to me? Or is it going to cause harm to both? Is it going to cause harm to others, to me, or is it going to cause harm to both? And if you look at that action before you take it, and it's going to cause harm to either another person, to you, or to both, then you should refrain from doing that. If you're doing a bodily action, and while you're actually doing this bodily action, you recognize that it's causing harm to you, or to others, or to both, then you should stop from doing that bodily action so that that harm can be eliminated. And then after you're done performing any particular bodily action, if you reflect on that and you notice that it caused harm to others, it caused harm to you, or it caused harm to both, then you should refrain from doing that in the future, because any kind of harm that you put out, it's going to come back to you. So you're going to need to have this higher consciousness where you're looking inward and reflecting on your bodily actions and figuring out, is this causing harm to others? Remember, you can't cause others discontentedness. You can't cause others to be angry and frustrated and agitated. That's not coming from you, but you can cause them harm. So I could steal somebody's car, and that's causing them harm. But if they get upset or frustrated, their mind is actually causing that itself, right? Because their mind's craving permanence. But I've just done a bodily action where their mind is likely to become discontent if they have craving, desire, attachment, right? So the Buddha is teaching you not only how to purify your mind, but how to form relationships and how to navigate the world in a way that you're not causing harm to others. Because if you cause harm, this harm is going to come back to you. So let me know if you guys have any questions here around right action. This is ensuring that you're not causing harm through your bodily actions. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. All right, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere, so I'm going to move on to right livelihood. What a livelihood is how you choose to sustain your life in the world. And the Buddha is teaching you how to not cause harm through your livelihood. Because if you were to sustain your life in like a job or occupation based on causing harm to others, that means 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, however long you're at work, 6 hours a day, you're causing harm to people through your livelihood, and this harm is just going to keep coming back to you. So here in the Eightfold Path, he just says something very general and very broad. He says, in what, monks, is right livelihood? Here, monks, the noble disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood. Here, he's just pointing to some other teachings. He has deep teachings around livelihood. There's this twofold purification. The first fold is what I'm going to teach you today so that you can bring your practice up to this first fold. But then say you're at a job that you really don't like and you're looking to move to another job, or say you're unemployed and you're looking to actually acquire a new job, you might be interested in going deeper beyond what it is that I share with you today. If you go to volume 12, chapter 14 of the book series, there you'll see the extensive teachings the Buddha has on right livelihood, and you'll see words from me to be able to help you. So that's volume 12, chapter 14. But here I'm going to teach you what right livelihood is to get to this first fold of purification, because this is typically where somebody's working when they first get started on the path. And since this is a foundational program, I'm going to help you to get to that first fold through sharing those teachings with you. But if you're changing jobs, or you're looking to change jobs, or you're unemployed and you're needing to get a new job, it would be wise at this point to start looking at the deeper teachings on right livelihood so that whatever decision you make can be fully informed. So here, the Buddha's teachings on right livelihood are where he's talking about 5 trades that would cause harm if you practiced any of these. If you had business in weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness or poisons. Now, remember, these aren't rules. These aren't commandments. These are things that you can learn, you can reflect on to independently verify, and you can practice and see the truth for yourself. So you can do this on your own time, but let's just take one so you can see how you would do this. So let's just take business and substances that cause heedlessness. Now imagine if I was standing on the street corner selling cocaine, heroin, crystal methamphetamine into the community. I'm causing harm by doing that, because now these individuals are coming to me addicted to these substances and giving me money for this substance. And a lot of times those individuals are going out and they're stealing, they're robbing, they're doing other things in order to get that money, right? They might even be doing some sex work or something like this in the community in order to get this money to now give to me, because I'm causing harm in the community by selling these substances. Well, now that I've chosen to sustain my life off of selling drugs, I'm very likely to get beat up. I can get murdered. I can get robbed. I can get arrested. I can get addicted to my own substances. This is all the unwholesome results of my decision to stand on the street corner and sell substances that cause heedlessness, right? So you can see for yourself that it's unwise to sell substances that cause heedlessness. But remember, this is the natural law of Gama. The natural law of Gama functions at a much higher level than any kind of laws that a government would create, because in most places it's illegal to stand on the street corner and sell crystal methamphetamine, heroin, or cocaine, or these other things. But a lot of places it's legal to sell things like alcohol, right? Well, if you understand this natural law of Gama through Right Livelihood, you might think twice, maybe even 3 or 4 times before you actually go work in a place like a liquor store. If you were a cashier at a liquor store, it's very likely to get robbed. You could get beat up. You can get murdered. At the very least, you're going to be dealing with clientele that are intoxicated. And now you need to deal with this, right? And this is not only at a liquor store, but this is if you were a bartender or you're doing anything that's selling substances that cause heedlessness. So while legally your government can tell you, hey, you can go be a cashier at a liquor store and there's no harm that's going to come to you. We're not going to arrest you, right? Because it's legal to do that. But if you understand the natural law of Gama and this cause and effect and action and result and wise decision making, and how your wise decisions will produce wholesome results and your unwise decisions will produce unwholesome results, you might decide that it would be unwise for you to actually go work at a liquor store, right? So you can look at each one of these individual trades that the Buddha is sharing, and you can see how it's causing harm. And you can either look if you've done this particular livelihood, or you can look in the news and see how other people are doing it. You can see the harm that's coming to them. And remember, it's not just the legal system. It's not just going to jail. There's all these other impacts and all these other effects or results that you experience. So if you followed the laws of a country, you're not going to get to enlightenment just by following the laws of a country. You need to elevate your mind to a higher consciousness where you have the wisdom of the natural law of Gama, and you're practicing in such a way that you fully awake to the natural law and that you can see this natural law as clear as day, right? Like right now in the unenlightened state, it's not so clear, and that's why you need somebody to be able to help you to be able to see this. But where you have questions and you need help, that's where you can reach out to me and get help. Either in these classes, you can send me a message, you can post in our Facebook group, or you can schedule personal guidance and I will help you. Because it's one thing learning in class, but it's another thing applying it to your day-to-day life. So this is the 5 trades that the Buddha is talking about that would cause harm, and you would like to ensure that you're not doing any of these 5. Then the other part of the first fold of purification, the Buddha shares here about scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. What he's talking about here is the way that you conduct your livelihood. So for example, if I was a politician, it's not one of those 5 that the Buddha is talking about that would cause harm, right? I'm not going to cause harm by being a politician. Maybe I'm a mayor, maybe I'm a police chief or something like this, or maybe I'm working in the House of Representatives or the House of Commons, or some parliamentary role. There's no harm that's coming from that. Making laws or being an executive in a certain government organization, there's no harm there. But if I was scheming, right, this means corruption, right? If I was corrupt, maybe I'm 10, 15 years into my career and people find out, right? And now they find out, and now they're not going to be willing to re-elect me. So that means I've built my whole career for the last 10, 15, 20, 25 years on being a politician. And now I'm going to really struggle when I can't get reelected. So if you have corruption in your livelihood, when it gets found out, you're going to experience the unwholesome results as part of that. What flattery is if you were working in a job and you were giving insincere comments just to get people to say buy things from you. Say you were working as a salesperson and you were just flattering people like, oh, wow, your hair looks really great today. Your jewelry really brings out the colors of your eyes. Oh, that's the most beautiful shirt I've ever seen. I wish I had one just like that, right? If you're insincere and you were flattering people through your insincere comments, people are going to see through that. And they're not going to be interested in doing business with you because people do business with people. They don't do business with businesses. They do business with people. So if you're working either as your own employee, like an employer, like say you own your own business, like a self-employed person, or you're an employee in somebody else's business, people are doing business with people, right? They're having relationships with people. And if you're being insincere and just flattering people just to get them to buy things from you or to get some favorable treatment from your boss or coworkers, they're going to see through that, and it's not going to help you in your livelihood. What hinting is not being clear and direct with certain work that you're doing. So if you're, say, on a project team and now you've been working for several weeks and you need to go give a presentation to your boss or somebody in senior management, if you're not clear and concise and direct, it's going to hinder you from being able to be successful in your career. So you would like to be very clear and very direct, very precise and very concise as you're communicating your work and what it is that you've been doing. What belittling is being diminishing and degrading and disparaging, either to your coworkers or maybe about your competition or something like this, maybe your business partners. If you're belittling and degrading people, people are going to see that, right? Even if you're belittling your competition, you're trying to make yourself look so great. If you're belittling your competition, people are going to see through that, and it's going to affect you in your livelihood. So you would like to get to the point where you're not belittling others in your livelihood, that you can be positive and uplifting. Then pursuing gain with gain. What this is that if you took a job or if you had an occupation where you were just collecting a paycheck and that's really all you cared about was the money, this is going to affect your mind and your ability to experience peace and joy in your day-to-day life. If you're just going to work to collect money, you're going to be unenthused and unmotivated in your work. You're going to drag yourself to work every single day, and you're going to despise going to this place where you spend 8, 10, 12 hours a day. You're going to feel so unmotivated, so unenthused. You're not going to have initiative. You're not going to have that pizzazz, so to speak, right? Where you really are interested in the work that you're doing. So if you're just pursuing gain with gain, meaning you're just doing this for money and you just have craving for more and more and more money, this is going to result in you experiencing this dullness and this lethargic, this complacent condition. So you would like to have a job and find a job where you're enthused and you're motivated and you're dedicated in the work that you're actually doing. And then this way you can develop this peaceful and joyful mind, but you can also develop this peaceful and joyful life where you're actively involved in a particular livelihood and you're thoroughly enjoying it. By the time you fully purify your livelihood, it's not even going to feel like work anymore. You just enjoy what you're doing so much that you can't imagine not going to this place and doing what it is that you do. Whether you're selling something or whether you're providing some service or something like that, you're going to thoroughly enjoy what it is that you're doing. It's not even going to feel like work anymore. Sure, you're going to be collecting a paycheck. You're going to need to make money. This is part of sustaining your life and having an income so that you can pay for food, water, clothing, shelter, and medical care. But by the time you fully purify your livelihood, that you would do this work even if you didn't get paid for it. That's how much you thoroughly enjoy it. Like say you retired, you just enjoy that work so much, you probably would find some other way to apply these skills and the things that you've done in the world, right? There's been times where I've been on my motorbike traveling to the temple and it's pouring down raining and I'm getting soaked and drenched. And I've got the biggest smile on my face going through the rain, getting to the temple. And it's just going to be wonderful to get to the temple and share these teachings with people so that they can learn what it takes to get to this peaceful, joyful mental state. So you would like to get to a point where you've selected something in your life that you're thoroughly enjoying, that you're motivated, that you're encouraged, that you have enthusiasm behind. And that's going to take you time to figure out what that is. And you might not be there right now. Or some people, you might be there right now. You might have been in this job for a long time and you thoroughly enjoy it and you can't imagine doing anything different with your life. That's what you would ultimately like to get to with your livelihood, because then it's not even going to feel like work anymore. So let me know what questions you guys have on Right Livelihood. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So Marcy has her hand up. If you'd like to go ahead, Marcy.
Thank you, Teacher David. So my question to you is about business and living beings. So I currently care for living beings, and that's how I earn my livelihood. But would that be a business in living beings? Because I mean, you're kind of getting paid to care for living beings.
Yeah, so what this refers to is what is the end product. So business and living beings is like a dog breeder or an animal breeder, where the end product is a living being. So you're sustaining your life off of the womb of this Cocker Spaniel who's been putting out puppy after puppy after puppy for the last 5 years. And now you're causing harm to that being. And now harm's going to come to you as a result of that. Or like human trafficking, right? Where you're like human trafficking, forcing others to do things in order for you to make money. Or say a slavery, things like this, where the ultimate end product is an actual living being. What your end product is healthcare, where that's what you're actually providing. You're not having business and living beings. You're providing a service that the end product is a medical service or some kind of care that's going to help this person be healthy.
Okay. And Teacher David, the second part to my question is that obviously some of the beings that I care for are fed meats. So there's times in my job where I either have to prepare a meal that includes, flesh of an animal. So how does that affect right livelihood?
Sure. This is about the choices that you make. So if somebody's made the choice that they are going to ingest meat, you're not the one who sold the meat, right? You're not the one who's basing your livelihood off of the selling of the meat. You're basing your livelihood on providing this medical service. This client or this patient has decided that they want to eat meat, and you're providing the food preparation or whatever it is. Maybe it's already prepared perhaps, and you're just feeding it to them. So you're not making the decision to base your livelihood off of the selling of the flesh of a living being that has been killed in order to now for you to make money. You're choosing to sustain your life off of providing medical care, and in this case feeding a person. So this isn't basing your livelihood off of meat because you're not selling the meat. What you're doing is you're providing the service, and it's the person who's eating that's choosing to eat this meat, and they're the ones who are experiencing the results of their decisions to eat the meat.
Okay, so preparing the food, like by cooking the food and stuff, I'm not in conflict with right livelihood. I'm just providing a service.
Yeah, the thing that you're experiencing as a result of preparing the food is any kind of smell or odor that goes into the body. It's not healthy for the body. That's what's impacting you in that situation. But that's minor compared to someone who's actually literally selling meat as like a butcher, right? If you're like a butcher having to kill pigs and then chop them up and sell them, that person is causing significant harm, and now this harm can come to them. This is where the whole COVID outbreak, a lot of people think that COVID started at a wet market in China, and this was people who were selling meat, right? And that was like ground zero, and a lot of those people ended up dying because that was when they didn't have a cure, they didn't have any vaccines or any way to remedy it. So because of the choices and decisions of all of us to eat meat at different times, we experienced this harm of COVID coming to us because we have been eating meat. This doesn't have to do with our livelihood, but we were eating meat. That was a certain bodily action. And then now there were people who were selling meat, and because of those choices that we've all been making, that's why COVID jumped from the animal world into the human world. And this has not just happened with COVID, but HIV, swine flu, bird flu, all these diseases that are coming from the animal realm into the human realm is because there's people that have business in meat. So you're not having the business in meat directly where you're killing, but you can experience the inhalation of the fumes that you're preparing, and then this can actually cause impact to you. So that's just something for you to be aware of.
Okay. And my last question, Teacher David, is having pets as an enlightened being. Would an enlightened being have pets?
For the most part, I would think not, but that doesn't mean that you need to rush out and go get rid of your pets, right? Like if you currently have pets and you're caring for them, it would be wise for you to gradually kind of bring down your herd, so to speak, right? So that because what's happening there is that because an individual has animals, now you're in the position where you're now needing to care for these animals and spend a certain amount of money related to that. And you're also making decisions about another being's life and keeping them trapped in this life of servitude. Even if they're just a pet, like a domestic pet, they're now being trapped in that experience. And it doesn't mean you need to rush out and go sell all your animals or leave them on the street or anything like that. But I would advise people, if they choose, again, everything on this path to enlightenment is about your decisions. I'm not telling you what you should or shouldn't do, but I would suggest for an individual to gradually bring that down so that they're not being impacted by the expense to care for the animals, and they're not being impacted by the choices that you have to make, perhaps about medications, or if you're choosing to euthanize an animal, this is putting you in a situation where you're responsible for the life of another being. And once again, there can be diseases and illnesses that jump over from the animal realm into the human realm as well. And this is what you're encountering as a result of having animals in your home.
Thank you very much, Teacher David. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. And what this all comes down to is having wisdom and then making the decisions that's right for you. Some people might hear what I just shared and say, you know what? Okay, I understand. These are the risks that I'm taking, and I'm still going to have animals, perhaps. Somebody might think that way, right? There can be craving, desire, attachment to animals and to pets. And this is going to hinder the mind from experiencing that peace and the joy. Because if you're attached to your pet, when it gets to the end of its life, you're going to experience grief and sadness and misery and despair. It's not the love or the care that you have for that animal that's causing that. It's the attachment. So by having an animal, not only do you experience all those things that I just talked about, but you also experience the potential for the mind to be attached to this being as well. And then you're going to experience the grief and the sadness and the misery as a result of that. Okay, let me see if we have any other questions here. All right, I'm not seeing any. Oh, here's one from Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
Hello.
Hello.
My question is, I guess, well, I've been a carpenter for like 20 years, and it really wasn't my decision. It was my decision, but, it's just something I did out of high school, and it kind of just snowballed into the rest of my life, basically. So I've definitely been, I would say, pursuing gain for gain's sake, just because I don't really enjoy it. I just do it, and I've always just done it. I go to work. I don't really talk about it when I get home. It's just something I do to make money because I know how to do it. And it's been 20 years, so I know how to do a lot. So, I don't know. I guess I didn't realize that I was pursuing gain for gain's sake. And so that might be wrong livelihood. And I definitely would be happier maybe doing something else, but I have no idea what that is. So I don't even know if there's a question in there. It's just more of a comment. So there you have it, I guess.
Yeah, what you'd like to do is, look at your life, look at your livelihood, and decide for yourself, does it make sense for you at this stage in your life to change your livelihood and get to something that would be more in line with your real interests? Or do you have just another 2 years before you need to retire? And once you retire, you're not going to be doing this livelihood anymore, and it doesn't make sense for you to actually leave at this point, right? That's where each person needs to make their own decisions about their life and how they're going to progress forward in life. And here, as a teacher, we're not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't do, whether it's about your career or pets or anything like that. Everything that you choose to do is based on your decisions, but you'll need to look at that and decide, does it make sense for you to get to a certain livelihood that you feel enthused about and motivated about, or are you just right around the corner from retirement and it doesn't really make sense for you at this point?
Yeah, I'll have to do some thinking about it. There's definitely no retirement in my field. Well, there is for some people, I imagine, but I'm 38. Maybe I'll think about it.
Yeah, I know people that have become doctors at the age of 40, right? So you can always change your livelihood if that's what you'd like to do. And that's where you'll see more peace and more joy in your life, because if you really don't enjoy the work that you're doing, you are the one who's making the decision to do that work, and it's going to feel quite miserable when you're doing it. So if you'd like to improve that aspect of your life, the Buddha's giving you the guidance of how to do that.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. It looks like Julia has a question here in Zoom. I apologize, I didn't have the chat portion open in Zoom, so I didn't see your question. You were asking about right speech. Here, Julia asks, concerning right speech, what if you can't say anything kind at the time of anger? Is it wise to remain silent? The other person may view silence as hurtful also. How do you practice right speech with the other person is not? Okay, so anytime your mind's angry, it's the wrong time to speak, right? It would be very unwise for you to speak in a situation where your mind's angry, going back to right speech, because it's not the proper time. And in that situation, if you're choosing to be quiet, you're not causing any harm. Somebody else might think that you're making them agitated and aggravated, but you've got to know the truth. This isn't about what other people know and what other people understand. You've got to understand the truth, that if you remain quiet, are you causing harm? The answer is no. You're not causing harm because you're not speaking, right? And you're not having any bodily actions. There's no decision that you're putting out anything. So there's nothing that's going to come back to you. Now, if somebody becomes bitter, harsh, and hostile because they feel like you're ignoring them, then that's their anger, that's their hostility. I would encourage you to walk away politely and gradually move away from that individual. And you may decide that it's unwise for you to continue in this relationship with this person. It may be unwise for you to actually continue in that particular relationship. So while other people are going to speak in an untimely way, other people are going to speak falsehoods, other people are going to speak harshly, other people are going to speak unbeneficially, and other people are going to speak with a mind of inner hate, you're going to need to have the wisdom to know that that's their practice. And you need to get to a point where you're not craving for them to use right speech. But this is about you cultivating the wisdom so that now you can practice right speech in a way that's ensuring that you're making wise decisions and you're experiencing wholesome results because of that. Let me just refresh my memory a little bit about your question to be sure I covered everything. Concerning right speech, what if you cannot say anything kind at the time of anger? Don't say anything at all. Just walk away. Is it wise to remain silent? Yes, absolutely. The other person may view silence as hurtful also. How do you practice right speech with the other person is not? This is where you develop your mind, you train your mind, you really need to dial this in closer and closer to ensure that you're eliminating your craving, your anger, and your ignorance. You're going to learn about this in chapter 8 when we get to that point. So each of these classes are building you up with tools and techniques and wisdom to be able to practice this more and more and more. And you don't have everything you need right now because we're just getting started, but you're going to need not only breathing mindfulness meditation, you're going to need loving kindness meditation, you're going to need the mental discipline section of the Eightfold Path. That's where you're going to learn how to control the mind, because the mind will be more disciplined as you learn right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, which is next week. So we're going to be moving into that next week, and I'll help you with that. And that's going to help you with your moral conduct. But as long as your moral conduct is harmful, any harm that you're putting out is going to come back to you. So after the Buddha would teach his students right view, which is what I taught you last week, right after that, he would move into teaching them the moral conduct. Because if you're looking to get to enlightenment and improve your relationships and have harmonious relationships, you need to improve your moral conduct. Because what right view is helping you to understand is your mind is causing your own discontentedness, right? If you have that wisdom that your mind is causing your own discontentedness, then there's no situation where it would be wise to be bitter, harsh, and hostile to others, because it's not them that's causing you to be angry. So that's why it starts out with right view. So then when you have right view, then you can understand to build right speech, right action, and right livelihood. But when we have wrong view, when we think other people are causing us to be angry, yeah, we'll have all kinds of wrong speech too, right? Because we have wrong view, so we'll have wrong speech too. So if you have right view, where you understand your own feelings are being caused by your own mind, but not only you, but other people too. When other people are getting angry, they're causing it themselves. Even though you're walking away from a conversation and they're trying to lure you back into this conversation as best they can, just keep walking. You've made your decision. Don't allow your mind to waver. You've made a wise decision to walk away. Whether your mind's angry or their mind's angry, it's unwise to talk, because if someone's mind is angry, you can't eliminate anger by giving more anger. If you're putting more anger into the conversation, that's not going to eliminate anger. You can't stop somebody else from being angry. The more you yell and shout and holler at them, the more angry they're going to get. And they're going to yell and shout and holler, and then you're going to get angry. So whenever you feel your anger building or your frustration building, walk away. Or you see somebody else's anger, frustration building, walk away. You need to prioritize the relationship and the peacefulness and harmonious in that relationship over, I've got to prove to this person that I'm right and they're wrong, right? That's the ego and that's the craving. You would like to get to the point where you prioritize the relationship and the peacefulness and the harmonious aspects of the relationship and value the relationship so much that you realize that even though it's the hardest thing to do to walk away, that's the wisest thing to do. The easy thing is to stay in the conversation and just yell and bicker and holler. It's easy to stay there, but you're going to be paying for it later because your mind's going to be all shaken up and you will have damaged the relationship. It's harder to walk away at first because your mind's craving and it has the difficulties where it's clinging to this situation. But more and more as you learn to walk away, it becomes easier and easier for you. And then this is protecting the relationship and prioritizing the relationship over just proving that you're right and other people are wrong. So great questions there. I see we have some more coming in too. Oh, that was just Marcy saying goodbye, wishing you guys a good day. Looks like Max, you have a question. Go ahead, sir. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Hey, Dave. I was just wondering if right livelihood has to specifically do with making money. For example, if a person finds themselves homeless, or if they are a monastic, or if they have some sort of condition where they can't work a normal job and can only bring in an X amount of money per month, do they have to worry about living right livelihood, or do they just focus on the rest of the path, or does right livelihood tie in the rest of the path? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, right livelihood ties into the entire path. What right livelihood is how you choose to sustain your life in the world. So these particular teachings here on the first fold of purification is about business, right? And like how you make money. But also like an ordained practitioner or a teacher or something like that, that's also their livelihood as well, that they're choosing to sustain their life through sharing the teachings of the Buddha, for example. And now as a result, people are paying for their food, their clothing, their shelter, their medical care, and things like this. That's also a livelihood. Even if you're retired, right? At one point you had a certain livelihood, now you're retired, but you're still sustaining your life in a certain way, right? Maybe you're a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad. Maybe you don't get a paycheck at all. So it's not about an actual paycheck, it's how you choose to sustain your life. So if I was a stay-at-home dad and I didn't make any money at all, that's still my livelihood. But I'm not practicing one of these, right? And I would like to make sure that it's not one of these five, of course, being a stay-at-home dad. But then as a stay-at-home dad, I would like to be sure that I'm practicing this, right? That I'm not scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, pursuing gain with gain as a stay-at-home dad, right? And then also, you would like to be sure you have enthusiasm and dedication and diligence and that you have a motivation to do that, right? Sometimes people choose to be stay-at-home parent and they really aren't interested in doing it and they just kind of drag themselves through it because based on finances and money, that's the craving that is kind of maybe dragging them into that or something like that. Or maybe they're clinging to their children and they don't feel comfortable to let them go and go to school or something like this. So the mind's craving and clinging might have you holding on to a certain job, like what Joe's talking about. Over the last however many years that you've been working that job, Joe, your mind's holding on to something there. Whether this was the occupation that your dad did, so maybe you're doing it too, or maybe there's a certain amount of money or income that you're making that your mind's holding on to. So the second fold of purification that you can read in volume 12, chapter 14, the Buddha teaches you about how to eliminate the pollutions of your mind that are having you hold on to a livelihood that you would rather otherwise not be doing. So by the time you get to the full purification of this factor of right livelihood, you'll have motivation and encouragement and enthusiasm to be doing that work, whatever it is. It won't even feel like work anymore. And whether that's being a stay-at-home mom or dad or an ordained practitioner or any of these other things, it's all about how you choose to sustain your life in the world. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do is just kind of give you guys a summary of what we talked about today. Today, we talked about right speech, which is ensuring that you're not causing harm through all your verbal conduct, any kind of communication, whether it's verbal, text, chat, post, emails. All of this should be harmless. Making sure you're practicing the 5 factors of well-spoken speech more and more. Speaking at the right time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. And also, remember that first level of the Eightfold Path where the Buddha teaches eliminating lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. You'd like to dial that in closer and closer. And then right action is about not causing harm through your bodily actions. All bodily actions should be harmless. And the Buddha gave you 3 there about killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. But you would like to relate this to all kind of bodily actions and not causing harm through your bodily actions at all. And then your livelihood is how you choose to sustain your life, ensuring that you're making decisions to not cause harm through how you sustain your life, that you find wholesome ways to sustain your life, and that you have enthusiasm and initiative around this. So this is the moral conduct section of the Eightfold Path. And this is rounding out the individual steps that we talked about today, the right speech, right action, and right livelihood. And what we're going to be doing next class is moving into the mental discipline section, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And this is what's going to really propel you and to be able to really help you to implement the moral conduct more and more. And just keep in mind that these aren't rules, they're not commandments. The Buddha's not telling you what you should or shouldn't do in your life. You need to make those decisions for yourself. But he's helping you see the cause and effect, or the action and result around your moral conduct and how you could cause harm, so therefore harm's going to come back to you. And as you build up your moral conduct and you're practicing this more and more, it's going to be gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. You can't just snap your fingers and instantly start practicing this stuff. It's going to take you many months and even years to gradually build this up. But that's where the mental discipline is going to really help you, because the mental discipline is going to be bringing down the pollutions of your mind so that you can be increasing your moral conduct and doing this more and more in wise ways. So thank you all for your questions. Thank you for your participation in class. Thank you for choosing to dedicate time to learning and practicing these teachings. In our next class, I'm going to be moving into that next section of the Eightfold Path, where I'm going to be sharing with you the mental discipline section. And that's going to be next Sunday. And then this Wednesday, we're going to be in the 3rd part of a 4-part series where I've been sharing with you breathing mindfulness meditation, helping you guys to build up your practice. And then what I do is I'm meditating with you, reminding you a few pointers of meditation, and then I'm opening up to any and all questions that you guys have. So you're welcome to come to that live, either on Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. Thai time or Wednesday evening at 9 p.m. And you need to check your local time zone, because it might be Tuesday evening for you and Wednesday morning. And if you miss that, if you're not able to attend it, you can always listen to the recording as well. So again, thank you all for your dedication, and perhaps I'll see you guys in one of these future classes. Have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Sawadee krap.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To provide support for this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha. To access more teachings, visit buddhadailywisdom.com. There, you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Remember to establish a daily, consistent meditation practice, along with learning and practicing these teachings. A well-developed meditation practice is the foundation in which to train the mind to attain enlightenment.